The galaxy had rules. Simple, unwritten rules that every civilized species understood. The strong commanded respect. The weak were ignored. And humanity? They were barely worth a footnote in the galactic records. Captain Mike Torres stood on the bridge of the cargo ship Defiance, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace through the main viewport. His crew of 12 humans was returning from another routine supply run to the outer rim colonies. Nothing glamorous. Nothing important. Just humans doing what they did best, surviving in the spaces nobody else wanted. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings on long-range sensors," called out his navigator, Lisa Park. Her fingers danced across the holographic display, frowning at the data streaming in. Mike moved to her station, studying the readouts. 3 years of flying cargo runs had taught him to read between the lines of sensor data. What he saw made his blood run cold. "That's a fleet," he said quietly. "A big one." The communications officer, Tom Blake, looked up from his console. "Sir, I'm picking up distress signals. Multiple frequencies. It's coming from the Keth homeworld." The Keth. Mike knew of them, a peaceful species of amphibious beings who lived in the water-rich systems near human space. They were artists, philosophers, builders of beautiful underwater cities. They had never hurt anyone. They were also completely defenseless. "Put it on speakers," Mike ordered. The bridge filled with the desperate, gurgling voices of the Keth. Even through the universal translator, their terror was unmistakable. Cities burning. Ships falling from the sky. Millions dying. Who's attacking? "Them?" Lisa asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tom's face went pale as he ran the signals through the database. "The Hive," he said. "It's the Hive Collective." Every human on the bridge froze. The Hive Collective was a species of insectoid warriors that consumed entire worlds, strip mining them for resources and enslaving any survivors. They were one of the galaxy's major powers, commanding fleets of thousands of ships and armies of billions. "Sir, we need to leave," urged his second-in-command, Dave Walsh. "Right now. If the Hive is expanding this far out, ... Mike stared at the display showing the Keth homeworld. Already, the distress signals were growing weaker. Fewer voices crying for help. Soon, there would be silence. The galaxy's major powers there, proud Stellar Federation, the ancient Void Lords, the mighty Titan Empire, they all knew about the Hive's expansion. They had the fleets to stop it. But the Keth were nobodies. Water dwellers who made pretty art and asked nothing from anyone. Not worth a single battleship, just like humanity wasn't worth their attention. Mike thought about his own homeworld, Earth, about the struggling colonies scattered across space, ignored by the great powers, left to fend for themselves. About his daughter back home, who would grow up in a galaxy where the strong devoured the weak and nobody cared. "Captain, we really should go," Dave repeated. "The Defiance is just a cargo hauler. We've got mining lasers and basic shields. Against a Hive fleet, ... How long until they finish with the Keth homeworld?" Mike asked quietly. Tom checked his readings. "At current rate of destruction, maybe 6 hours. Then they'll move to the outer colonies. After that ... He didn't need to finish. After that, they would find humanity's scattered settlements. The bridge fell silent except for the fading Keth distress calls. Mike looked at his crew, 12 humans on a ship that barely qualified as military surplus. They all knew what he was thinking. They could run, should run, live to fight another day, but there wouldn't be another day. Not for the Keth, and eventually, not for humanity either. "Sir?" Lisa's voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. Mike straightened his shoulders. His crew was looking at him, waiting for orders. Good people. Brave people. The kind of humans who volunteered for dangerous cargo runs to keep the colony supplied. Set course for the Keth homeworld, he said. Maximum speed. Captain, that's suicide, Dave protested. Mike turned to face his crew. Maybe, but those people down there are dying because nobody in this galaxy thinks they're worth saving. Nobody thinks we're worth saving either. But maybe. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned what happens when you ignore the wrong species. The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace and changed course. Behind them, the safe route to human space grew distant. Ahead lay a hive fleet that could vaporize their ship with a single volley. But Captain Mike Torres and his crew flew on. 12 humans against impossible odds. 12 humans who refused to let another species die alone. The galaxy was about to learn a new rule. Asterisk. The Keth homeworld burned. Captain Mike Torres watched through the Defiance's viewports as his ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. What he saw turned his stomach. The beautiful blue-green world that had once sparkled with underwater cities now glowed with the orange light of destruction. Jesus, whispered Tom from the communication station. There's nothing left. The hive fleet dominated local space hundreds of dark, angular ships that looked more like diseased insects than spacecraft. They moved in perfect formation around the dying world, methodically destroying anything that moved. Escape pods, fleeing civilian craft, emergency shelters. How many ships are we looking at? Mike asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lisa ran the sensor data through the computer. I count 437 hive vessels, battleships, destroyers, fighter swarms. And Captain ... She paused, her face pale. I'm reading a boom. Hive Queen-class dreadnought. That thing could take out an entire Federation fleet. Dave shook his head. We can't do this, Mike. I'm sorry, but we just can't. One cargo ship against that? Mike understood Dave's fear. They all did. The Defiance was built for hauling supplies, not fighting wars. Her weapons were mining lasers meant for breaking up asteroids. Her shields were designed to stop space debris, not military-grade plasma cannons. But as Mike watched, another cluster of Keth escape pods died under hive fire. Families, children, people who had done nothing except exist in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tom, are you still getting distress signals? Mike asked. Yes, sir. Weak ones. I think there are survivors in the deep ocean trenches. The hive ships can't reach them down there, but... Tom's voice trailed off. But what? They're preparing to crack the planet's crust, turn the oceans to steam, kill everything. Mike closed his eyes. In a few hours, an entire species would be extinct. Their art, their culture, their children all. Of it erased because they couldn't fight back. There has to be something we can do, said Lisa quietly. Mike opened his eyes and looked at his crew. 12 humans who had volunteered for this mission, knowing it was probably suicide. They weren't soldiers. Tom had been a teacher before joining the merchant fleet. Lisa was an engineer who sent half her pay home to her sick mother. Dave had 3 kids waiting for him on New Boston Colony. They were ordinary people. But maybe that was enough. Tom, can you patch me through to the hive fleet? All frequencies? Sir, that will give away our position. Do it. Tom's fingers flew over his console. You're connected, Captain. They'll hear every word. Mike activated the ship-wide comm system so his crew could hear. Then he opened a channel to the hive fleet. Hive collective vessels. This is Captain Mike Torres of the human ship Defiance. I'm ordering you to stop your attack on the Keth homeworld and withdraw from this system. The bridge fell silent. Outside, the massive hive fleet continued its methodical destruction, seemingly ignoring the tiny human cargo ship. Then a voice responded. Cold, mechanical, utterly alien. Human vessel, you are irrelevant. Withdraw or be destroyed. I'm afraid I can't do that, Mike replied. The Keth are under human protection now, Dave stared at him. Mike, what are you doing? But Mike was already thinking 3 moves ahead. He'd spent years studying military history, fascinated by how small forces could defeat larger ones through cunning and courage. David and Goliath, the Battle of Thermopylae, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Sometimes the only way to win was to change the rules of the game. Hive Fleet, you have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal, Mike continued. After that, I'll consider your presence here an act of war against humanity. Laughter echoed from the Hive communication channel. Harsh, chittering sounds that barely sounded alive. Human, your species controls 12 ships. We control thousands. You threaten us? Mike smiled grimly. Correction. My species controls exactly 1 ship. This one. But sometimes 1 ship is enough. He cut the communication and turned to his crew. Lisa, I need everything we have routed to engines and forward shields. Tom, send a coded message to Earth Command. Tell them what's happening here. Dave, get me firing solutions on their command ship. Mike, you can't be serious, Dave protested. Deadly serious, Mike replied. We're going to ram that Queen-class dreadnought. The crew stared at him in shock. But slowly, one by one, they began moving to their stations, because sometimes 12 humans were enough to change everything. The Defiance accelerated toward the Hive Fleet like a bullet fired from heaven. Captain Mike Torres gripped his command chair as the ship's modified engines pushed them far beyond safe operating limits. Lisa had rerouted power from life support, artificial gravity, everything except shields and propulsion. They had maybe 10 minutes of air left. It would have to be enough. Hive Fleet is responding, Tom reported, his voice tight with concentration. 50 ships breaking formation to intercept us. Through the viewport, Mike could see them coming, sleek, predatory vessels that moved like living things through space. Each one was 3 times the size of the Defiance. Each one could destroy his ship with a single well-placed shot. Lisa, how's our ramming course? Locked on target, Captain. We'll hit the Queen-class dreadnought dead center in approximately 4 minutes. 4 minutes to live. Mike thought about his daughter on Earth, about the message he'd never get to send her, about the crew that had trusted him enough to follow him into this insanity. The first Hive interceptor opened fire. Shields at 60%. Dave called out as plasma bolts hammered their forward deflectors. We can't take much more of this. More ships joined the attack. The bridge shook violently as energy weapons tore into their hull. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency illumination that bathed everything in hellish red. Tom, are you still recording? Mike asked through gritted teeth. Yes, sir. Everything's being transmitted back to Earth. Good. If they died here, at least humanity would know why. Would know that someone had tried to stand up to the monsters. But Mike wasn't planning to die. Not yet. Lisa, can you give me a debris field? Something between us and their heavy guns? Lisa's fingers flew over her console. There's a destroyed Keth orbital station about 30 kilometers to port. I can route us through the wreckage. Do it. The Defiance dove into the floating graveyard of twisted metal and ceramic. The remains of what had once been a beautiful space habitat now provided cover for their desperate charge. Hive fighters followed them in, but the tight confines limited their maneuverability. Now, Tom, Mike shouted. The communications officer had been waiting for this moment. He activated every transmitter the ship had, broadcasting on all frequencies at maximum power. But instead of words, he sent something else: music, human music, classical, rock, jazz, folk songs from a dozen different colonies. The sound of humanity's soul broadcast into the darkness of space. What are you doing? Dave asked, confused. Psychological warfare, Mike replied, watching the tactical display. The Hive operates on pure logic. They don't understand art, beauty, creativity. It confuses them, and it was working. The Hive formation wavered slightly as their computers tried to process the chaotic flood of human emotion translated into sound. It only lasted seconds, but seconds were all Mike needed. The Defiance burst from the debris field like an arrow from a bow. Ahead of them, the massive Queen-class dreadnought filled the viewport, a kilometer-long nightmare of black metal and organic curves. The ship that commanded the entire Hive fleet. The brain of the swarm. Shields at 20%. Dave reported. Hull breach on deck 3. Hold together, old girl, Mike whispered to his ship. Just a little longer. 2 minutes to impact. The Hive Queen ship's point defense systems opened fire, filling space with deadly light. The Defiance shuddered under the assault, but Lisa's course held true. 1 minute. The Queen ship's massive main guns began to track their approach. If those weapons fired, nothing would remain of the Defiance but scattered atoms. 30 seconds. Mike could see individual details on the enemy ship now weapon ports, sensor arrays, the glowing organic sections where the Hive Queen herself waited. 10 seconds. The main guns were almost locked on target. 5 seconds. Mike closed his eyes and thought of his daughter Dot, and Tom's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, look!" Mike opened his eyes and saw something impossible. The sensor display showed new contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Dozens of them. Hundreds Federation battleships. Titan Empire cruisers. Even ships from the ancient Void Lords, species that hadn't been seen in open space for decades. Tom was receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Emergency fleets mobilizing. Species that had ignored each other for centuries, working together for the first time in galactic history. "How?" Mike whispered. "Your message, sir," Tom replied, tears streaming down his face. "The one we broadcast when we first arrived. It went out on all frequencies. Every species in the galaxy heard what you said, saw what we were willing to do. The Hive fleet was scattering, outnumbered for the first time in their existence. But the Defiance continued her charge, because Mike had learned something important. Sometimes you don't need to win the fight. Sometimes you just need to show others that fighting is possible. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Captain Mike Torres watched from the bridge of the Defiance as ships from across known space dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The Federation's silver battleships flew alongside the Titan Empire's golden dreadnoughts. Ancient Void Lord vessels, all crystal and flowing energy, moved in harmony with the geometric craft of the Silicon Collective. "I count over 3,000 ships," Lisa reported, her voice filled with awe. "Captain, every major power in the galaxy is here." The Hive Queen-class dreadnought had stopped firing at the approaching human cargo ship. Instead, its massive bulk began turning toward this new threat, the largest allied fleet in galactic history. "They're hailing us," Tom announced. "All of them. Every fleet." Mike straightened in his command chair. "Put them through." The communications channel crackled to life with dozens of voices speaking in as many languages. The universal translator struggled to keep up, but the message was clear. "Human vessel Defiance, this is Admiral Kron of the Federation 4th Fleet. We received your transmission. We're here to help. Captain Torres, this is War Master Blade of the Titan Empire. Your courage has shamed us all. The Titans fight beside you. Small human ship, the Void Lords acknowledge your sacrifice. We offer our assistance." Voice after voice, species after species, all saying the same thing. They had heard humanity's call. They had watched 12 humans charge into certain death to save a species nobody cared about. And they had decided that maybe it was time to care. Mike felt tears on his cheeks. All allied fleets, this is Captain Torres. Thank you, but our mission isn't over. There are still Keth survivors on the planet's surface. They need evacuation before the hive cracks the crust. Understood, Defiance, came Admiral Kron's reply. All ships' rescue operations are priority one. Federation medical ships are moving to assist. Dave looked at the tactical display in amazement. Mike, they're actually doing it. The whole galaxy working together. But the hive wasn't going to give up without a fight. The Queen-class dreadnought sent out a signal, and the scattered hive fleet began regrouping. They were outnumbered 3-1, but these were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. Incoming transmission from the hive flagship, Tom reported. Mike nodded. Let's hear what they have to say. The voice that came through was different from before. Still cold, still alien, but there was something else now. Uncertainty. Human. Your species was irrelevant. You commanded no fleets. Controlled no worlds of value. Why did they come for you? Mike thought about that question. Why had they come? Humanity was still a minor species in galactic terms. Earth was still a backwater world. Human space was still ignored by the major powers. But maybe that was exactly why they had come. Because we stood up, Mike said simply. Because when someone needed help, we didn't look the other way. Because sometimes the smallest voice speaks the loudest truth. There was silence on the channel. Then the Hive Queen spoke again. This changes nothing. We are still strong. We will adapt. We will return. Maybe, Mike agreed. But when you do, you won't be facing scattered species fighting alone. You'll be facing all of us, together. The first shots of the battle lit up space like artificial stars. Federation ships engaged Hive battlecruisers, while Titan dreadnoughts traded fire with insectoid destroyers. But this wasn't like the Hive's previous conquests. This time, their enemies coordinated their attacks, shared targeting data, covered each other's weaknesses. The Hive had always won through superior numbers and ruthless efficiency. But now they faced something they had never encountered before Unity. Captain, we're receiving evacuation reports from the planet's surface, Tom announced. Federation medical ships have reached the deep ocean trenches. They're pulling out survivors. How many? Thousands, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. The Keth had deeper shelters than we thought. On the main viewer, Mike could see tiny shuttles rising from the planet's dying oceans, carrying the last remnants of an ancient species to safety. Keth families who had lived to see another day, because 12 humans had refused to let them die alone. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides were lost, but slowly, inevitably, the tide turned. The Hive fleet was being driven back, their queen ship damaged and retreating toward the outer system. Sir, Dave said quietly, I think we actually did it. Mike watched as the last Hive vessels jumped to hyperspace, fleeing from the combined might of the galaxy's united fleets. But he knew this was just the beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Keth Prime, Captain Mike Torres stood in the brand-new Galactic Unity Council chambers on the neutral world of Haven. The building itself was a marvel designed by Keth architects, built with Titan engineering, and powered by Void Lord crystal technology. Every species in the galaxy had contributed something to its construction. The human representative will now address the council, announced the moderator, a tall, graceful being from the Stellar Federation. Mike walked to the central podium, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes upon him. Representatives from every major power sat in the circular chamber, species that had barely spoken to each other, now working side by side to create something unprecedented, a true galactic government. Honored delegates, Mike began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 6 months ago, my crew and I made a choice. We chose to stand between the innocent and those who would destroy them. We didn't do it because we were Strong. We did it because it was right. He paused, looking around the chamber. In the gallery above, he could see his crew: Lysa, Tom, Dave, and the others. They had all been promoted, their actions at Keth Prime making them heroes across the galaxy. But they remained together, now commanding a new class of ship designed specifically for humanitarian missions. Today, I want to talk about what we've accomplished together, Mike continued. The Keth homeworld has been restored. Their people have returned to their underwater cities, their culture preserved for future generations. The Hive Collective has been pushed back beyond the Outer Rim, their expansion halted for the first time in centuries. Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly. The combined fleets had done more than just win a single battle. They had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. But more importantly, Mike said, we've learned to see each other not as competitors, but as allies. The Federation's medical technology has saved millions of Titan lives. The Void Lord's energy manipulation techniques have revolutionized Silicon Collective manufacturing. The Keth's artistic traditions have brought beauty to worlds that had forgotten what peace looked like. An elderly Keth representative stood up, their amphibious features showing deep emotion. Captain Torres, Speaker for Humanity, my people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You risked everything to save strangers. You showed the galaxy what true courage looks like. Mike shook his head. With respect, Counselor Reefsinger, you're wrong. We didn't show the galaxy courage. We showed them something far more important: compassion. The courage was already there, in every species, every individual. It just needed someone to take the first step. The chamber fell silent. Mike could feel the weight of history in this moment, the sense that everything was about to change forever. Which brings me to today's proposal, he continued. Humanity formally requests the establishment of the Galactic Humanitarian Corps, a fleet dedicated not to conquest or trade, but to protecting those who cannot protect themselves, to ensuring that what happened to the Keth never happens to anyone again. The vote was unanimous. Later, Mike stood on the observation deck of the new Defiance, not a cargo ship this time, but a state-of-the-art humanitarian vessel, equipped with the best technology every species could provide. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the construction yards of Haven, where ships from the new Galactic Humanitarian Corps were being built. Credits for your thoughts, Captain? Mike turned to find Lysa approaching, her new commander's insignia gleaming on her uniform. She would be taking command of her own ship soon, the Hope's Edge. Just thinking about how much things have changed, Mike replied. A year ago, humanity was nobody special. Now we're founding members of the most powerful alliance in galactic history. Do you think it will last? Lysa asked. This unity? Mike considered the question carefully. He thought about the challenges ahead. The Hive would return eventually, stronger and more determined. There would be new threats, new crises that would test the bonds between species. It will last as long as we remember why we came together in the first place, he said finally. As long as we remember that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, not exploit them. Tom's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the Epsilon sector. A species called the Gentle Ones is under attack. By raiders. Mike smiled and headed for the bridge. All right, people, let's go do what we do best. The Defiance jumped to hyperspace, followed by a fleet of humanitarian vessels from across the galaxy. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or traders, but as protectors. The galaxy would never ignore them again.